So I was watching the Times Radio's YouTube video from about a month or so ago from the Homeland Party conference. And there was a specific section, which I've clipped, obviously, that sort of pissed me off for obvious reasons. And I don't particularly wish to just continuously rehash the same talking points over and over again when it comes to this specific topic. But I will play the clip in just a second. But even the way it's sort of framed infuriated me. You know, and credit where it's due to Kenny Smith. He sort of handled it probably the best way that he could. But it's just the way that this narrative is always framed. And the narrative I'm speaking about, obviously, is the great replacement conspiracy theory, you know. And they always try to poo-poo the idea by referring to, like, how it's far right, you know, and it's the idea that there's nefarious plans in place to try and deliberately replace white people. And it's all being done by Jews and globalists, you know. They always have to add on all these additional caveats to try and make the idea sound totally unbelievable. And it just really frustrates me for obvious reasons, given the fact that, you know, you don't really need to look too far to see just what's going on here in terms of what's right in front of your face. And what I'm really referring to here, without having to put on a tinfoil hat, is the fact that even in a Scottish context, they are continuously in our parliament talking to no end about needing immigration powers devolved in order to replenish our population because we have an aging population, you know, that is literally demanding or advocating for or pushing for control over your borders in order to encourage people to come here to have children on your behalf. Henceforth, that in turn, by extension, dare I say, implies replacement. But it's a partly conspiracy theory. It really annoys me. So I'll play the clip first, and we'll go from there. Here we go.
Camus' book, the French writer is considered to have popularized the Great Replacement in modern times. Camus believes that native white Europeans are being replaced in their countries by non-white immigrants from Africa and the Middle East. And while Camus' initial concept did not focus on Jews, the Great Replacement theory has been adopted by white supremacist movements to fit into their conspiracy theory about the impending destruction of the white race, as part of a deliberate plan by Jewish and/or globalist elites. The theory has been cited by perpetrators of terrorist attacks such as the 2011 Norway attack and the 2019 Christchurch mosque attack. Last year, the leader of the House of Commons commissioned a guide to warn colleagues of 8 conspiracies, including the Great Replacement. Camus was expected to speak at the Homeland Conference, but a few days prior, he was banned from entering the UK as his presence was not considered to be conducive to the public good.
That we are becoming a minority in our own country.
Kenny is right in the respect that the number of people identifying as white British in census data has declined between 2001 and 2021 in England and Wales. But overall, the white British population still remains as the majority ethnicity in the UK. There are many different factors that may contribute to this decline, including the way individuals choose to self-identify between censuses. For example, even though the question of ethnicity was introduced in the census of 1991, it only provided one option for white. It wasn't until 2001 when the census introduced white British and mixed ethnicity. And so these changes in definition makes collecting ethnicity data and measuring changes over time challenging.
There may, emphasis on may, be a myriad of different factors for why it may be the case, you know? Multiple different potential contributing factors, right? Including the way that censuses are filled out now. In comparison to how they once upon a time were filled out, you know, you don't really necessarily need to look at the census. All you need to really do is just look around you in certain parts of the country. But regardless, you know, all you need to do is, like, for example, this is a very, very old article now that people refer to quite often. White Britons will be a minority by 2066. Okay, and I mean, this is all often cited by people, has been for some time. But it's not just limited to that, of course. 1/3 of babies born to overseas mothers, figures reflect the changing face of the UK's post-Brexit immigration system, with India the most common country of birth for foreign-born mothers. Birth by parents, country of birth, England and Wales for 2023. And if we calm down, it says here that 31% of all live births were born to non-UK born mothers in England and Wales, which is an increase from 30.3% from the previous year, which continues a general increase in the percentage of live births to non-UK born mothers. 37.3% of live births were to parents where either one or both were born outside the UK, increasing from 35%. India remaining the most common country of birth for non-UK born mothers and fathers, and Pakistan remains second, right? Just another tab here. This is from the year previous, 2022, right? England and Wales, 30% of all live births were to non-UK born mothers, an increase of 28% from the previous year, continuing the long-term trend of the percentage of live births to non-UK born mothers generally increasing, okay? An even older version of this from 2019, 28% of all live births were to women born outside the UK, the highest since records began. Okay. The total fertility rate decreased for UK-born women, right? And of course, even when you have to really delve into the statistics and whatnot, when they're even speaking about like UK-born women who we refer to here, we're talking about Bengalis or Polish women, etc. You know, we're not really speaking specifically about ethnicity in that regard, but the point remains the same. Native births are on the decline in England, Wales, and Scotland, which I'll come on to. Simultaneously, the influx of immigration over the course of the past 20 odd years or so, exponentially exploding, dare I say, the past few years, you know, combined with the fact that there's a influx of children being born to people in this country who were not born here. What else have we got? Got far too many tabs open, as per usual. Let's come to Scotland, shall we? Scotland's population rising at the fastest rate since the 1940s. In birth rates for Scotland. In 2023, there were 45,000 plus live births, which is the lowest number since records began in 1855. The fertility rate in 2023 was 45 births per 1,000 women of childbearing age. Women are having children later. Yes, they are, but even the ones that are having children later are not having, or there's not a lot of them having children, hence the record low birth rates to begin with. Simultaneously, of course, while this happens and abortions continue to increase and whatnot, as it says there, rate of terminations have increased. Termination services in Scotland undertook 18,000 plus terminations in 2023, representing a 10% increase, right? And then we've got, my phone is ringing, so I will have to pause this briefly. 2 seconds. It's becoming all the more common to see more and more articles such as this appearing in the media. Scotland's population time bomb. Demographic time bomb is a concept they often refer to. The Scottish government are guilty of doing it myriad of occasions in the past. Scotland's population time bomb is immigration to pile pressure on public services, with the number of people living in the country set to increase by nearly 500,000, as well as an increasingly aging population, right? We could look on the actual Scottish government's website, as they love to bang on to no end about immigration and the desperate need to have devolved immigration powers. As it says here, that our history of immigration is different to that of the rest of the UK, all right? Then it says that Scotland's population has been growing in recent years, reaching a record high of 5.49 million or 5.5 million mid-2023. This is because more people have moved into Scotland than have left, and this is in spite of deaths outnumbering births each year since 2014 to 2015. Bear in mind, again, as I've said, our population continues to increase annually, year upon year, has been doing so for the best part of 20 odd years. Simultaneously, our birth rate continues to decrease, right? And what do you get from the Scottish government? Calls for more immigration powers, because we need freedom of movement, because we need to have people here to refresh our workforce. Replacement. But it's a conspiracy theory, apparently. It's just... The population has grown as a result of both international migration and people moving between Scotland and the rest of the UK. In the years to the mid-2022 to mid-2023, the numbers of international migrants moving to Scotland have been much higher than in previous years. right? Including, though, migrants are generally younger than the population as a whole. The most common age group for international moves to and from Scotland in the year 2023 were from 16 years of age to 34. However, across the population of Scotland as a whole, the number of children and the number of people aged 16 to 64 has generally been falling, whilst the amount of pensioners is beginning to increase, hence the term ageing population. So if there's less young people in the country, and more people are not having children, and more people are entering the country, and this isn't just limited to Scotland, this is more and more people entering the UK annually who simultaneously have their own children, whilst we do not, stands to reason that eventually simple maths would point to the fact that the scales will tip. That's not doom posting, it's not hyperbole, and it sure as hell was not conspiratorial. It's fucking simple. It really is as simple as that. You do not need a tinfoil hat. You do not need to be some Austrian painting worshipper who goose steps down the road. No, you just simply need to look at what they're advocating for, which is more and more migration in order to replenish our aging populations. So the great replacement theory can be poo-pooed by the likes of the Times Radio and lefties and whatnot. You know, even like back in the day, do people not remember this when they used to gloat? The last days of a white world. Huh? We are nearing a global watershed as a time when white people will not be the majority in the developed world, Britain included. Yeah. Like, I would love to see the stats or the predictions, if there is any out there, for when Scottish people are predicted to become a minority. You know, there's the 2066 figure. There's obviously updated variations of that as the years have gone on, but I've never seen anything for Scotland in particular. Be interesting to see, because our population is obviously a lot smaller than England's, always was. And as a consequence, I don't think it would take very long to start to begin to see the sort of effects that you're beginning to see in England, such as a myriad of different cities where ethnic English people are minorities in their own cities. But yet it's a conspiracy theory, apparently. And even if